Hello, welcome back. Next two chapters of the Nowhere Emporium, chapter 25, called The Nothingness. Daniel woke with the start. Several of the clocks on the wall displays the date as well as the time. They told him they'd slept through an entire day. It was strange how tiredness had crept over him, just as he'd given the book to Sharp. Daniel's hand touched the empty pocket. He thought of the book. Usually, when he wished to find anything in the Emporium, an object or a place, he would simply hold a picture of it in his mind and he would know in an instant where it could be located. But now, when he pictured the Book of Wonders, he could see nothing. There was a blind spot in his vision, like a static interference. It was not being caused by the weakening of the Emporium. The only explanation was that Sharp was blocking him, purposely keeping him at arm's length. And why would he do that? What did he have to hide? Sharp had made everything seem so hopeless, made Daniel think handing over the Book of Wonders was the only option left. But now his head was clear, Daniel was starting to realise the enormity of his mistake. In half a beat, he was through the curtain, and right away it was obvious that something had changed. Looking at the decaying great hall of the stairway, it was like visiting some ancient ruins, or the site of a disaster. The stairs were worn and broken. Many of the flickering torches had died, casting the corridors in cold shadows and gloom. The air was tinged with the taste of smoke and the thick dust, and of something sour and metallic. In the day, Daniel had been asleep. The Emporium's disease had progressed rapidly. A terrible thought knocked the wind from him. The Nowhere Hotel. Would it still be standing? Were his friends okay? Sprinting through the dark, Daniel found his path blocked time and time again after debris of collapsed corridors. A wonder called the shipwreck had burst open, flooding several passages with waist-deep water full of colourful fish. The door to the Nowhere Hotel was like many of the other wonders, cracked and warped. As soon as Daniel saw it, he knew something had happened inside. The revolving door deposited him in the lobby, which had been so vibrant and grand the last time he'd visited. Now it was silent. Lights flickered on and off. The columns of black marble were crumbling. There were fissures on the floor and places where the ceiling had collapsed. "Hello?" said Daniel, flinching at the sound of his own voice. There was no answer. He didn't want to go any further. He was scared, both of the lonely gloom and of what might have happened to his friends. But his friends were exactly the reason he had to go on. Ellie lived in this place and it was impossible for her to escape. What if she was trapped somewhere? What if she was hurt? But where? Which room was hers? Where would he begin to search? Caleb's room, he said to himself. What number was it? What number? 108. It was 108. He ran to the elevator, punched the button. Nothing happened, of course. It wasn't working, said Daniel to the Emporium. Why make anything easy for me? He kicked the wall. A chunk of black marble broke off and thudded to his feet. The stairs were narrow and steep, all bare concrete and flickering strip lights. As Daniel climbed floor after floor, the Nowhere Hotel creaked and groaned around him. He knew it could all fall apart at any moment. He knew that this wonder could disappear from existence as easily as any of the others, but he pushed his way through the fear. When he reached the 10th floor, his legs and lungs were burning. Keep going. Through the door, he took a slow step forward and another, and then he froze. A metre or two in front of him, where there should have been floor and walls, should have been the door to Caleb's room. Should have been something, anything. There was nothing. The walls came to a jagged stop, like some monster had bitten the corridor in half. The floor stopped suddenly, and a lip of ragged black carpet beyond the opening in every direction was a darkness that went on forever. Daniel stared into the black, saw no wreckage, no light, no sign that anything at all had ever existed. He imagined stepping off the edge, falling into the nothingness, tumbling forever, losing all memory of who he was or how long he'd been there, till he became part of nothing too, part of the fabric of the darkness. Lost. Was Caleb lost? Anya? Had the nothing swallowed Ellie? He tore one foot from the other and stepped back. A deep rumble filled the place, like the breath of the sleeping giant. A small section of the floor and the wall broke off and spun away into nothing as the world lurched violently forward, throwing Daniel onto the carpet. He landed with a thud, knocking the wind from his body, and rolled and skidded and bumped out of control towards an unimagining fall. He threw out a desperate hand. His fingers found the ragged edge of the black carpet. and he clung on and managed to stop himself going all the way over. His lower body was now hanging over the edge of the abyss. His grip tightened desperately on the carpet, but the weight of him was beginning to fray the material, and he watched it in helpless horror as the carpet ripped slowly, and finally snapped. He fell back with a sickening jerk. A hand, huge and warm, wrapped around his wrist, hoisting him high. He was slung over a wide shoulder, and he watched, blinking the sweat from his eyes as the remainder of the floor began to breaking and crumbling like dry cake. "Oh, I'm dead," he thought. The person who was carrying him leapt back just as the floor completely collapsed, and for a moment Daniel felt like he was back in the leap of faith, soaring through the sky. Then they landed and rolled and tumbled, and Daniel was flung against something hard and cold. "Are you all right?" Daniel rubbed his head and his face. There was a smear of fresh blood on his hand. Standing over him, looking down with a concerned expression, was Caleb. They were back in the stairwell, but the nothing was spreading. The door to the 10th floor was being swallowed up, and the walls of the stairwell were already beginning to crack. Daniel threw his arms around Caleb. "You saved my life," he said. "Where is everyone? Is Ellie all right?" "Let's talk on the move," said Caleb. "The further we are from the edge, the better." Daniel noticed Caleb flinch as they descended the stairs. He seemed to be favouring one of his arms, holding it tight to his body. There was something else, something missing. "Where's Mr. Bobo?" said Daniel. Daniel had never seen Caleb without his ragged, no-eyed teddy bear. Caleb's lip trembled. "He didn't make it," he said in a low, sad voice. "You saw my room is gone. Bobo was inside when it swallowed up by the dark." He took a handkerchief from his pocket and blew his nose. When he lowered the handkerchief, a drop of ink trickled from his nostril. He wiped his nose with his hand and stared at the black smear on his skin. "I suppose I should have been expecting it eventually," he said with a sad sigh. "We're all just characters in Silver's book, and we'll fade to nothing without him, just like the Emporium. Half of us were wiped out when the hotel began to crumble. Most of the survivors are dying of illness. It seems I can now count myself in that category." Anya said Daniel. "Did she make it?" "She survived," said Caleb. "She's still in recovering from her injuries." He smiled and placed a massive hand on Daniel's shoulder. "I heard you saved her. Everyone knows Daniel Holmes, and we thank you. We're forever in your debt." "The way things are going, that won't be time for tomorrow. Never mind forever," said Daniel. "Where are the rest of the staff?" "Silver made a hospital wing years ago," said Caleb, "in case anything ever happened to his customers. It hadn't never been used until now. Thankfully, it's still in one piece. For the moment at least." He let out a wheeze, wiped the inky blood from the corner of his mouth. He waved away Daniel's concern. "There's nothing that can be done for the ill. We can only make them as comfortable as possible." "And Ellie?" asked Daniel. "Have you seen her?" Caleb shook her head. "Her search party was due to be the last back. They haven't returned yet." "She's still out there." Daniel leaned against the wall and put his face in his hands. Caleb sighed. "She's tough," he said. "I'm sure she'll make it back." He paused to wipe his nose again, and then went on. "There's something I think you should know. Ellie doesn't have a condition. There's no magical disease that stops her from leaving the shop. It's Mr. Silver who keeps her here." "What? You mean she's his prisoner?" "He loves her very much," said Caleb. "But he said Ellie must stay for her own protection. He will not tell her exactly what she needs or what she needs protecting from. Ellie thinks he's being selfish. She believes Mr. Silver keeps her in the shop because he doesn't want to be alone. So you can see why she's so desperate. Not only is her father missing, but he's the only one who can release her from this place. She's trapped in a crumbling tomb." They reached the lobby. The fire eater and the boy had stood face to face at the exit. "You're not carrying the Book of Wonders," said Caleb, indicating Daniel's empty inside pocket. "I can sense when it's close by. It's the first time I've seen you without it since Silver's disappearance." He began to cough wildly and leaned on the wall, wiping more inky blood from his face. "I have to go," said Daniel, worry swelling his chest. He didn't dare confess that he'd given the book away. "Try to look after the others and yourself, and if you see Ellie, please tell her I'm so sorry and I need her help. I'll see you soon." He turned away, wondering if he'd ever see the fire breather again, and began to walk the lonely corridors in search of Vindictus Sharp and the Book of Wonders. Oh, it's all getting very dangerous now. Right, let me just check. Okay. we can get chapter 26 done as well. So this is another flashback. An unexpected visitor. Edinburgh, June 1897. Lucian Silver's Emporium was the talk of Edinburgh and far beyond. There were days when the shop was so busy that he barely remembered a face, and the stream of customers becoming a blur of smiles and compliments. But on the first anniversary of the Emporium's opening, Lucian was introduced to a face he would never forget. He had placed an advert in each of the city newspapers announcing the entry to the Emporium would be free. On the day itself, Silver sat at his dark desk near the red velvet curtain, nodding to the passing customers. Many of them commented that it seemed impossible that so many wondrous rooms could exist in a stick-thin little shop. Near the end of the day, someone approached the desk. At first, Lucian did not look up from his book, but then he heard a familiar voice, deep and firm, and cold. "Hello, Lucian." Vindicta Sharp had not aged a day since their last encounter in the rainy Edinburgh graveyard. This did not shock Lucian. In his travels before he settled back in Edinburgh, he had discovered layers of magic that was hidden to all but a select few. Magic that could unlock the mysteries of life and time and the universe. He was more certain now than ever he knew the secret of Vindicta Sharp's long life. Sharp was stealing the future from innocent people, stealing time and adding it to his own. Lucian stood. He'd been waiting for this moment for a long, long time, to be able to rub his success in Sharp's face to show him how wrong he'd been. He'd actually stayed awake at night, imagining exactly what he would say if he crossed paths again. This was the chance. Something shifted between Sharp. He moved aside, and Lucian's eyes met those of the second person. All thoughts of Sharp's was lost. The young woman was perhaps a year or two younger than Lucian. Her skin was fair and freckled, and her hair fell in tumbling red curls over her shoulders. "This is Michelle, my daughter," said Sharp. Michelle held out a porcelain hand, and Lucian kissed it. As his lips touched her skin, and the air in the room seemed to shiver and crackle, Lucian pulled at his neckties. "Pleasure to meet you. I don't recall your father ever mentioning a daughter." Sharp sat on the edge of the desk and began examining one of Lucian's fountain pens. "There were a great many things I did not mention. Michelle has been in boarding school most of her life. I travel the world, and this is no way for a young girl to grow up." Lucian nodded. He felt his gaze drawn back to Michelle. "Well, what can I do for you?" he asked. "What brings you to Edinburgh?" "Business," said Sharp. I am booked to perform in Edinburgh for 1 month. Word of your work has reached me from the magic community, and at this he glanced around the shop. I could not resist stopping by for a peek. Lucian smiled. "Then a peek you shall have. Miss Sharp, would you care for a tour of my emporium?" Michelle Sharp's blue eyes met Lucian Silver's thunder grey ones. She smiled a shy smile. "I'd like that very much, Mr. Silver," she said. And so Lucian led the way, taking great delight in Michelle's amazement, using every opportunity to remind Sharp how the idea of the Emporium was born in the very same notes he had dismissed as nonsense. 2 hours later, when the tour was complete, Lucian watched Sharp and his daughter stride down the narrow street. He was unsure of 2 things. Number 1, he had surpassed Sharp in every possible way. More importantly, Sharp was aware of this fact, and it would eat away inside of him like an infestation of maggots. This thought made Lucian very happy. And number 2, Michelle Sharp was nothing like her father. She was enchanting and warm, and Lucian knew that he must, no matter what it took, see her again. His wish was granted the next day. Michelle returned to the Emporium, and this time she was not with her father. "I had to see it all again," she confessed. "It's remarkable and impossible. I couldn't stop thinking of you and your Emporium when I left." They walked the shop's ever-growing number of corridors, Michelle laughing in the delight when the rain began to fall in one of the passageways. Lucian produced a black umbrella, seemingly out of nowhere, and held it over her head. The day passed in a haze of shy laughter. As she left, Michelle gave him a lopsided smile. "I don't think my father likes you very much." Lucian breathed in her words. "The feeling is mutual," he said. "You're not scared of him the way everyone else is, are you?" Michelle said. "No. Being frightened of him is only giving him what he wants." Michelle beamed at him. Then she did something that he did not expect. She leaned in, pressing her lips gently against his mouth. When the kiss was over, Lucian stumbled back a step, ran flustered hands through his tangled hair. What was that for? But she only smiled and turned away through the door to the cool Edinburgh sunshine. Lucian watched her face, his face pressed up against the window of the shop window until she turned the corner and was gone. Lucy and Michelle then spent every day of the following month together, hidden away from the world. Each night he would create a new wonder to bewitch her, and the sound of her laughter was intoxicating, and the touch of her lips a drug to which he soon became addicted. Beat by beat, Michelle Sharp was stealing Lucian Silver's heart. If he had only known what was next on her list. We're going to stop there on that little bit of a cliffhanger there. We've got chapter 27 tomorrow, The Truth. I think it'll probably be the only one because it's quite a long chapter. Yeah. And until tomorrow, take care and I'll see you later.